Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. We're going to broach a subject that we're all dealing with, struggling with, figuring it out, excited by, which is spatial audio. We've got two folks who have got great perspectives on it. Reuben Cohen and his partner, Gavin Lurssen, is literally one of the finest mastering shops in the business, has been forever. Their track record is absolutely sick. He's a good friend of the show. And Marielle Jakobsons is got a fascinating background, works with a company called Embody, that their approach to spatial audio is really interesting, and we'll talk about it. And Marielle comes from a gaming background and now has come over to this Embody side. So we've got really interesting perspectives. So here's where I would start. Because of the show, we get hit with a lot of spatial audio folks, and there's a ton of what I think are experts, but they have different perspectives because the space is so fungible, I would say. So Marielle, from your perspective, give us your view of spatial audio and kind of where we are in the ecosystem.
Sure. And thank you both for having me on Pensado's Place. It's such an honor. So just wanted to say thank you before I start diving in.
Our pleasure.
So spatial audio, where are we at? It means so many different things to different people. Mm-hmm. And, if you're working in film, it might mean one thing. If you're working in gaming, completely different thing. There's TV, there's music, there's Dolby Atmos, there's podcasts, there's VR and AR, not to mention different types of spatial audio formats. Mm. So I really see it as a plurality of different options and approaches and ways that you might think about creating audio that goes beyond stereo. Let's just say as a baseline, how do you make audio that goes beyond stereo, that can be transformed into all of the different media that we're producing?
And does somebody need to know all of them or know where they live and at least have that mastered? Because it feels like we're in this intersecting point where you may do a lot of different things and then require different levels of knowledge.
Yeah, I think that it really depends on your application. And I think I always think of spatial audio as kind of like delivery format focused. So if you're creating a Dolby Atmos mix, then spatial audio to you right now means a Dolby Atmos mix and an ADM file that you're delivering. If you're creating for VR and AR, then you're probably looking at ambisonics and how to create spherical sound, and you're looking at tools that can support that. Mm-hmm. So to me, it really kind of goes to the application. Mm-hmm. And that informs, the approach and what tools and what workflows you're looking for.
What's your perspective, Reuben?
Oh yeah, thank you, and Marielle, that was great.
Absolutely.
Thanks for including me, both Herb and Dave. It's an honor and a privilege as always. Yes, it is the Wild West to some degree, although things are settling into place now more than ever. There's a lot of terms that go around. Years ago we were talking about surround, then it was talking about Dolby Atmos. Now immersive is now the new word that is to one size fits all. Everything is immersive. Spatial audio is really an Apple term. It's their own codec of binaural fold down from whatever immersive it is. So that is strictly for Apple as it is right now, just to eliminate any confusion. In terms of where we are with it, the way I think about it is really object-based audio or channel agnostic audio. It's mixing to coordinates in space rather than an actual channel. So we've had decades and decades of refining our world of stereo. Its best practices have been developed and honed in and refined, and all of those best practices can be translated over to these new codecs and mediums in all the same ways. Things like EQ and compression, blending of elements within the mix. The big difference is that you don't really have a bus. In stereo, you're always working up into a bus and summing. With channel agnostic audio, any of these formats at all, you have the absence of a bus, which really changes a whole lot. And you have a whole canvas to paint on. So if you're painting on an array of speakers, and you have access to an array of speakers, that's one way to ingest all of this. But there's also the headphone aspect of all of this and how it folds down to stereo. which is a binaural fold down. So before getting ahead of myself, there's many ways that can happen. Dolby has their own version of that. So far, Tidal is the way that that's ingested by the public and the masses. But also Apple has its own way of folding down, and they call that Spatial, which is their own proprietary way of folding down. And we can monitor that as we work. So when we're delivering, let's say a Dolby Atmos master, and as we're mixing and mastering all of that, we're monitoring through an array of speakers if that's available to us. We're also monitoring through those fold downs, primarily Dolby's version. We can do that through Dolby's tech, through the renderer. And also you can set up and through Apple's tech, listen to Spatial. It's important to listen to all of these and find a balance, because you're really only delivering one final thing, which is currently at least, which is an ADM, Dolby Atmos master.
The buzz right now is AI. How is that going to, fold into Atmos and spatial audio?
So one way that Embody is leveraging AI is to enable you to hear spatial audio on a pair of headphones with your personalized HRTF. And so back in the olden days, you had to go to a studio to go get your HRTF measured. And this head-related transfer function, they would basically take white noise, a speaker array with white noise coming from all different directions, and measure how sound enters your eardrum in an anechoic chamber. Now, through the power of AI and machine learning, we can actually predict that from just a picture of your ear and allow you to hear that on headphones in just a matter of seconds, instead of having to go to some anechoic chamber and get it measured. Right. So creating accessibility, I think, and learning how can we make things more open and accessible is one of the privileges of what AI can give us.
Is this where HRTF comes in?
That's right. So when we predict your personalized HRTF, basically it transforms from how I would hear sound in the real world, but in a spatial context, how I would hear sounds from above me and behind me and all around me. But I'm able to hear that on a pair of headphones from anywhere.
What's your favorite headphones?
Well, I mean, these are really some of my favorite over here. These Odysseys, and they're really quite comfortable, and I like what they do. But I'm also a big Beyerdynamic fan as well. So, I like to not get too comfortable with one pair.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you ever look in the mirror and sit with your headphones and think you look like the Princess Leia?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably do a little hairdo to go with it too.
So, Reuben, in the world of, as you see the world from a mastering standpoint, or just from Reuben's standpoint, and you take these, and by the way, you guys explain spatial audio. We've had a number of people on the show. You guys covered the scope of it better than anybody we've ever had on the show. Just know that, which says a lot about Embody and the people that are around Embody. What I find fascinating is as people struggle with it, they struggle with it with optimism. Like, not, damn it. It's more like, damn it, if I can just get to it, because when I do get it right, I have something that is interesting and dynamic and different. And I believe what's going to happen is it's going to affect creativity in a good way. Like you can make things for spatial audio and take you other places. Marielle, Reuben, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think that the creative potential of spatial audio is just beginning to be realized. And once more and more possibilities and tools are available, and that they're more accessible, I think that really focusing on, like creatives first, like how can somebody who's never looked at spatial audio open up a set of tools and think, oh, this is inspiring? Like that in Embody is what we hope to achieve. I might not know much else about spatial audio, but I can open up our tools, see a 3D audio interface, and imagine what will it sound like to hear the sound moving from front to behind me and above me. We want to enable that inspiration. And I know that there's so much more potential to spatial audio than has yet been realized. And that's really exciting to me. And I think that once people get to hear spatial audio also with their personalized HRTF, a lot of the confusion and muddiness that people have, like some of the negative experiences that people have had, can go away because of the accuracy of it. So for me, that's also something really exciting to help unleash that creative potential.
You're painting on a new canvas, which is something that's really in its infancy, and everybody's kind of learning the best way to go about that. If you're producing with this in mind, you're really understanding a production from the get-go. It's much different than translating something that was produced for stereo and wrapping it or reimagining it in this format, because that was never part of the original intent of that song, hypothetically. Right. But now that we have these two roads to go down, which are similar roads but different at the same time, we can really come up with something quite special if that's in mind the whole way through. A little bit more that we didn't talk about with the personalized HRTF for everybody tuning in that doesn't quite understand why we need this. Generalized binaural is what you hear right out of the renderer. It's based off really the Neumann dummy head, the average human ear and the average human anatomy, right? But everybody hears, and that's based off just the average head. But your ears are just a porthole to the brain, and your brain understands space and your understanding of reality just based off the brain adapting to that. And it's pretty malleable. It's pretty adaptive. It changes pretty quickly. So I don't know if you ever had your ears cleaned, but the first couple of weeks, you're thinking, where is everything? And all of a sudden the brain adapts and everything starts feeling a little bit more familiar until you're just locked right in. And that's what the brain does. So what a personalized binaural HRTF allows for is to plot the distance and connects that gap between the generalized and your own personalized, your own personalized anatomy, really, your biological bias. So if you don't have that, Dave might hear the guitars a little louder than me, or the vocal a little quieter than me, or anybody else. It's subject to how anybody's head and brain is shaped based off how their brain has learned this atmosphere. But if you implement the personalized binaural, that really closes that gap. So everybody can experience all of this content while folded down in a very similar way.
Let's say I was trying to get started in this particular medium. At first glance, it seems, oh my gosh, I can't do any of this. And then you bite off a little piece and a little piece. Can you help someone that's not really good with this yet get a grab at a foothold and come up with us?
Yeah, that has been very common. I've been in this space about 5 or 6 years now. We had a privilege of getting introduced into this space early on, well before Apple or any of this, actually from somebody named Stephen Barton, who's very well steeped in the gaming world. So he brought Gavin and I into this and said, hey, nobody's talking about this, but this is a wave that's coming and you need to know. So he educated us for a long time, and we developed a method of mastering that we've come to use sometimes. Other times it's a little, and I have videos about it. It's called the phantom bus process. It's a way to master as though you have a bus with the absence of a bus. So you maintain correlation, and I'll give you a 20-second spiel. But basically, when you don't have any bus, you don't have a way to create correlation with when we're mixing to a stereo bus.
There's no stereo, no anything.
There's nothing. There is no bus to put anything on. So if you put a compressor across all objects, those compressors are not going to be linked. They're going to be working, for instance, a kick drum could push a compressor this way, whereas a vocal could be doing this. So the more you compress, the more loss of correlation that you have, which is sometimes really nice to have things unlinked, but there's ways to tie it all together through mono fold down. So you fold down your whole object-based mix to a mono fold down, and that becomes the dynamic thumbprint of everything. and then you have all your compressor side chain off of that. And you can do this in a series way. So you can compress into compression and EQ into that. And it all works as though it's on a bus, even though it's not.
Define a monofold down.
So if you want to have all of your processing tied dynamically, you can take the entire object-based mix and fold it down to mono.
Uh-huh.
And that mono is a thumbprint representation of everything.
Does that make decisions on where the compressor is and where the kick is? Does that allow us to make decisions that way?
It allows you to put a compressor across every single object and have it side chain off that mono fold down, telling it how to behave, although it's processing each object independent of one another.
Gotcha. That's some neat stuff, man.
Now, here's a question about doing stuff where there is no bus. When there is no bus, do you call Uber? Oh, that would be me, not you guys. So
that was a good one. Herb.
The secret sauce of Embody, I find, is that they are trying to simplify something that is not necessarily simple, allow you to cut to the chase in the usage of it. The interface is such that, you don't, even though we have two rocket scientists here and they're not named Dave and Herb. So for the public, that they can be smarter and in their choices in using this. And so it's a tool that they can use, but also teaches them and gets them prepared for next iterations. Am I getting that close?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, some of our big goals with our interfaces, what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. And, to be able to look at something, to feel like you're really there. And so with the Immerse Virtual Studio, for example, we have, this big interface that puts you right in the sweet spot of many world-class studios that you can flip through an audition. Right. You can just click on a speaker and be like, okay, so what's happening in the front left? Oh, what's happening in the rear? Oh, okay, I know, And for our panner and visualizer that are part of our suite, it was really important to make a 3D interface for making 3D sounds. I found a lot of frustration with having these flat 2D interfaces where you have one knob for going in a circle and a different one for what's your height. And how do you see where everything is all at once, right? Like it's really hard to actually just see what's going on, and having two different interfaces for a sound, just like show me where the sound is. It's right here.
This allows you to be mobile with your work, right? It should.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, people are working from all sorts of different situations, and not everybody has access to a world-class studio or an Atmos studio or a surround sound studio. And with Embody, you can just have a pair of headphones, and the Immerse Virtual Studio will transport you to any number of studios, including Lurssen Mastering. Yep. And you can check out your mix and hear how Gavin would hear it in his studio. And we think that accessibility is really powerful tool for anyone who's working from anywhere.
And also, I think as an indicator of Embody's validity, tough shops have taken a look at this and gotten involved, like Lurssen. Gavin and Reuben don't suffer one bit. Since I've known them, they do not let the brand suffer at all, same as I am about Pensado's place. And just because I'm close to them, recently Blackbird, another incredible brand, talked with Kapil at Embody, and I talked to John McBride after, and he really likes the idea of the studio being involved on those lists of things. Alan Meyerson, another one. Like, there are really first-class shops that are checking out Embody and saying, oh, I'm messing with them because of the way they think about it, which is exactly what we did as the show. I met, we had some very interesting stuff. Kapil and I went under at NAMM and had more discussions. I was like, oh, we're rolling with this. This is so part of what I think is really great is in Embody's usage, the intellect around spatial audio and what you can learn from, evidenced by our guest today, huge. The idea of being able to look at other masters and how they use Embody and what they feel they do with spatial audio is there. And what happens out of that is actually community building too. Like, you feel like, oh, let me go over here. This is a camp of people who care about what we're doing. I can learn from them. I can see what's going forward. I think it's cool when we do it that way, holistically, the whole kind of 180 way. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Herb. Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we put a studio into Immerse Virtual Studio, it's a collaboration with the studio, and the engineers that work in and day out on that studio, they collaborate with us on the tuning. They're like, we go there and we show them the plugin. They put on their headphones, they take off their headphones, they put on their headphones, they're like, okay, yeah, no, 1.5 dB more at 5K, please. Right? Like we get it right so that like this is the sound representation that they know of their studio working day in and day out in the studio. Mm-hmm. And we take that close collaboration so seriously. It's not just up to me what sounds good. No, it's like all of these masters that we're collaborating with, and the community input as well. Like, oh, what if we added this feature? Or, what I think would really help to make this shine. And we work together on the features in the product with the studios. And I think in that way, we're trying to create something that reflects true everyday use, right? And the uniqueness of every studio. We're not erasing that. Like, this studio sounds a certain way for a really good reason. Like, Alan Meyerson's studio is very different and unique than Jimmy Douglas's studio. Let me tell you, the stuff that they're mixing is very different, right? Yeah. Alan Meyerson's mixing film scores. He's got everything set up in a very particular way. Center channel, let me tell you, is, it's different than mixing in Atmos at Jimmy Douglas's, where he's popping out the bangers. So different kinds of genres that you're working on too, different kinds of studios. How do you get that personality and that feeling all inside the product?
Mm-hmm. What's the importance of the room? The room has an importance, right?
The room is there to tell us what to do, to make us feel ultimately connected to the music, to create a scenario where you feel like you're not wanting for anything, and it tells you everything you need to know so you can bring your best foot forward with nothing in the way. And that's, you don't want to be influenced by the room outside of being connected to the music. So the big importance behind this tool and this tool set is to allow everyone to play in the sandbox. And, there's a lot of barriers to entry to get into this space up until now, really, because you have to have a room with an array of speakers. You need to know how to tune those speakers. You need to get familiar with that. That's not available to a lot of people. Although it's expected now more than ever for everyone, that's music makers, mixers, producers, to be able to submit and present an immersive immersive aspect or component rather to their delivery. It's going to get if you have a component that's immersive, it's going to get prioritized on Apple's platform. They're going to push that forward. So it's becoming more and more of a need. Yet, who has an array of speakers at their disposal or access to it all the time? So what this really does is it allows anybody to do that and monitor, and from they could be sitting in Starbucks with a pair of headphones. And it's not just to make sure that their mix sounds good. It is to mix while monitoring through this as though they are in that room, sitting there while checking there, but then also checking at the various fold downs outside of that. Because what that is that's an HRTF of a room. So you put you right where we're sitting, as though you're sitting there. But then you should also check without that. You should check your generalized binaural, because that's how a lot of people are going to ingest it as well. And you should check spatial. So if you check all of those things and you're putting things into place and making sure that it all translates and fine tuning over here, fine tuning over there, the same way, Dave, you'd check on your one of maybe 3 speakers or maybe more in your room. I know you'd have multiple speakers in your room. It's the same thing. You're checking it over here. You're checking it over at the NS10s because you know how those translate.
Everything, yeah. Hey, I got a question for you. This is just me being selfish. Chad Blake is incredible with binaural recording. How can we take this information here in this particular technology and let little old Dave here make a binaural vocal?
A binaural. Well, this would be a way to monitor through binaural, either through our array of speakers binaurally,
okay,
or through generalized binaural. I think if I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has the binaural head and the microphones for it. I was hoping if we could shortcut that, because that's a lot of money.
Well, that would be a way to kind of have an ambisonic element within your immersive mix, and it would be a creative decision. So you would have something that is ambisonic or has some phase correlation between a multiple, in that case, it would be two objects that are correlated that way. And you could put that in this as a a technique.
Yeah, I got it. That's cool. Real cool. That saved me about $10,000 right there.
Well, when you talk about, I think everybody is dealing with barriers to entry when some things are just so available and other things are not. And so any tool that democratizes that process, I think, becomes a good thing and becomes more and more what people are going to, it shows people that it can be done, that you don't, you might not need ATCs in a room that's treated and all this kind of stuff to go get what you need to get. It's part of my attraction to Embody in terms of somebody being able to say, oh, let me take on this space with this, my goodness. And in talking to the company and thinking about developments that are coming down the pike, that they're constantly pushing forward and new projects and so forth, in sort of leaving our audience in a way that's informed. Give me your future casts. What does the future hold as we go down this path?
Well, one of the things that I feel strongly about is the accessibility, and also for a future with more open formats for spatial audio. So right now, part of the accessibility issues, I believe, are due to these closed formats where you need a special set of tools in order to develop content, and it's kind of closed from end to end. And where I hope to see, technology and one of the places where I see Embody is just offering alternatives, offering things for people to get started, try something different. Maybe you're developing podcasts and you're thinking about, like, how could I make these podcasts sound cooler? And you don't need to buy into a specific audio codec in order to make your podcast sound cooler. And, you can actually just download the Immerse Spatial Audio Production Suite, start playing and have fun and just see where it takes you. So to me, I think about, the creative potential, having more tools for more people, offering alternatives, let people play and see what comes out of it. I think that spatial audio and immersive formats are here to stay, and there's so much more room for us to grow. So I do hope that bringing that openness and the inspiration for creativity is something that we can offer.
Rube, you feel the same?
I do. I feel the same. I couldn't agree more. And this is still in its infancy. Apple just released news that they're releasing a headset, a VR, AR headset that will include spatial audio. So this is going to be for music. This is going to be for film and TV, games. This is going to be for all types of content that is yet to be realized. The App Store You could be sitting at the Super Bowl, the best seat in the house. Turn your head this way, turn your head that way. You're there. It sounds like you're there. You hear the crowd behind you. It all correlates. I mean, we're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of where this is all heading, and there's a big part of music for this as well.
The fun part, I think, particularly from my chair, is, Dave's expertise, Reuben's expertise, Marielle's. I come from it from a different place, and to have it made so clear and to understand, I think I'm kind of the consumer who's non-musical. Let the person who is musical and deal with, and they're more advanced than me. And again, the luxury of the show is that we talk to lots of folks that think they know. This has been edifying, clarifying, spot on, and really, really amazing. I think that what I would hope that we can do is continue these discussions. Like, the evolution is so fast. I don't think we can do one show and then come visit you guys in a year. So I'm going to be bugging folks for you guys to come back on, and we keep these discussions going. Would that be cool with you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is absolutely fascinating. And you guys are great. You're just great guides. You're spatial spiritual animals. and absolutely. And beyond that, you're friends. That's the other part. We've known Reuben forever. Reuben and I have shared lots of things, and the work is incredible. Marielle, just getting to know you, but from the first Zoom we had, I was like, she's a bad girl. she
makes her own instruments, Herb.
No, I know. And so, thank you so much for this. Please come back. We want to keep this going. And even if there's an update that we don't know, that you guys know, it's time to hit us up, let us know so we can schedule something and continue to talk about. I think we're doing a service for the community. I think they get to meet badasses like yourself. And Dave and I and the Pensado team are just humbled.
Yeah.
Thank you. Such an honor.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And I just want to say, just conclude it with, there is a lot of hesitation around people getting into this, and there was a little bit of scare that this was going to come and replace stereo. I don't think that's the case. I think stereo is very much a part of what we do and will always be. I think it's so much ingrained in our the culture of music, and this is just another way to be creative, paint on the canvas, and all of those techniques that we've harnessed as engineers can be translated into this world in a lot of the same ways. There's no reason to be hesitant to jump in. It's all available for everybody.
I'm still working on mono.
We'll always be students.
Yeah, absolutely. Reuben Cohen from Lurssen Mastering, an incredible shop. Marielle Jakobsons from Embody. If you don't know Embody, you're learning about Embody. You should get in touch with Embody. You should download Embody. You should pick the studio that you want to emulate. You should learn from the pros and get up to speed on spatial audio and where it's going. These are your spiritual animals for it, your spiritual guys, and you heard it here first. Thank you, guys, and we'll see everybody next week.